Audio Jungle.
Good evening, one and all. I take this opportunity to welcome you for yet another one more session of with Learn by Chapter, where the question itself, the tagline goes like this: think, question, discover, and the student edge. There we say that raise the bar and unlock. So we are going to explore the possibilities of making it possible for each and every student in the class. So this is the main objective of this session. So what we are going to explore today is basically about the cognitive sciences, which are more aligned with the critical thinking process, and how understanding of a mind can improve educational and also professional outcomes. So by examining the mechanics of memory, including how we encode and decode an information and retrieve that registered information into text that highlights the importance of moving beyond the personal biases to achieve the objective of learning. So in that process, what we are going to highlight today is the 5 core competencies like observation, analysis, inference, communication, and problem solving also. Because these are the 5 pillars of the critical thinking process, which are identified for as the key base for the baseline for the independent thought and effective workforce execution. So thereby, what we are going to see is the practical methods of growth, such as professional feedback, that is very much required for our educational experiences, applying the impartial research to resolve complex issues that might come our way. So ultimately, these insights that we are going to see today will serve as a guide for both learners and educators, that is teachers, to move beyond the intuition towards more evidence-based, data-based strategies for mental development. So the knowledge presented as a foundation tool will allow us to better ourselves and deploy more sophisticated thinking techniques and utilize our working memory. So all these factors that we are going to see today, that is basically understanding, that is recepting, seeing. First, what you see, you receive. What you receive, what you do, you conceive the information in your head. And what you conceive, that you perceive. What you conceive, that you work on it and you perceive. And what you perceive, you achieve. So the whole process goes like this. And how this process can be aligned to our learning. So on that note, scientifically, we have to learn what is this process of thinking, where does it start, what is the main catalyst for it, and how thinking differs, why thinking differs, when thinking differs at different situations, why is it happening? Those reasons also, scientific reasons that we are going to see. And moving ahead, overall, we are going to explore how comprehensive thinking developed with the integration of the mental, emotional, and the physical domains of a learner will help as a significant competitive advantage in academic processes. So that's what is the thing. So as we know that advances critical thinking provides a very significant advantage in helping the students in navigating the information. Now I told you the process of seeing, receiving, conceiving the information, perceiving the information, and achieving. So these kind of navigating the information and help them to apply in a classroom situation. Thereby, they will be able to develop the required skills which are required. Required skills in the sense, if they are not able to, if they see something, they should be able to understand what they are seeing. If at all that understanding skill is required, we will help on that understanding skill. Once you see what you receive, and you should conceive, you should be able to understand the, like work on those information that you receive, and you should be able to apply that information. If at all you are not able to apply that information in your learning process, then we will guide you with that as well for the active engagement. Thereby, you will be able to achieve in the whole process. In simple words, this is what we are going to see. So on that note, please allow me to share my screen. So we will go on to the slideshow now. Let me just put down this controls first. So raise the bar, unlock the student edge, think, question, discover. This is what we want our students to do exactly. So moving ahead, how this architecture of critical thinking is being set up. So what we are going to see in the first half or for the first 15 minutes is about the science of critical thinking. And then moving on, exactly how to apply it in the learning process. And in the learning process, how Learn by Chapter effectively uses these strategies to make the whole learning process a success. So what is critical thinking? That's what we have to learn now. So where does it start? Where does it start? Anyone has any answers? You can tell me. You can just message me in chat box. I will be able to get it. Or if you want to have it more like an interactive session, I can have it, but you will not be able to see my screen. I'll be talking to you. So whichever way you want me to do it, I can do that. Please message me. So this architecture of the critical thinking process, from where does it start? That is moving from the basic instinct. Some thought comes to our mind. That is independent thought, and how this is being correlated to a learning process. When does this thought occur? Basically, mind is like a fire and it has to be kindled. That is, some kind of a stimulus is required to get that response. What register in our thought is some thought process is going on, and this what we are seeing, what we are hearing through all our senses, this is going into the mind and it is creating that response. That is what is called the reaction that we see. So this lightning spark of thought generated in the solitary mind awakens the likeness in other mind. So what we think, what we see, what we receive, that we are going to give it back to the society or to the person whom we are speaking to. So the stimulus starts from the mind, where there is a catalyst and it kindles that thought and we are communicating to the other person. So all thought requires a trigger, and the trigger is the stimulus and the action is the response. For every action, there is always an equal and opposite reaction. Agree? So the essence of independent mind lies in what they think, but how they think. Say, for example, if I'm going to show you a picture, and if I'm going to ask you for your responses, basically, what do you think about this picture? How would you, what does it register in your mind? You will have many number of things from your perspective that you will be registering. So that's the essence of independent mind lies in not what they think, but how they think, where the mind is not a vessel to be filled with, but it is a fire to be kindled. So what is the science behind this? Basically, it all starts in the brain, the human brain, the thinking process. It happens in the mind with the help of our brain. So every thinking process happens in the mind through our brain. And we all know that there are two parts of the brain. Yes. So there is a left part and the right part. And if you are a left-handy, people who use left hand for writing and other things, they are all called as lefties. And there, for them, the left side of the brain is very strong, and every single decision, every single thought, every single thing that they do, is the left brain is responsible for it, because they'll be logical thinkers, they'll be focused in analysis. You can identify them. Anybody who is a very logical thinker, one who is focused in analysis, who is very responsible, who can learn multiple languages, who controls speech, and responsible for meeting facts and names, memorizing names and facts, and controls reading and writing, more kind of a very academic person, controls science and mathematics capacities, specializes in sequential processing the information, controls the right part of the. So this person is a left-dominated person, and that's how the left brain works. But if the person is a right-handed person, right brain dominated person, they'll be more kind of a very focused in intuition, more kind of an emotional person, focused in synthesis, responsible for spatial orientation, responsible for the ability to draw, very creative aspect. They'll be very, these people, left side people, if you ask them, they will immediately, they're more kind of a maths person, logical, computer person, science person, that kind of a person. If you ask about the right side, right dominant brain person, then they will be more about thinking, imagination, drawing pictures with the creativity and creates emotion. They will have produced dreams and multitasking the process. So this is how the brain works. There are two parts of the brain and every single thought process happens only here. So if it happens there in these two parts of the brain, but there are three different ways that they react to different situations. That's how, that is, as we can see, the cognitive, that's the mental part, affective is the emotional part, psychomotor is the physical. These are otherwise called as the domains, cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. So now what we are going to see is how to relate this anatomy of the holistic learning with the philosophy of the neurosciences. What are neurosciences? That we have seen now, the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. Now, who developed this? We all know this name very well in the education field. That is Professor Benjamin Bloom, that has come out as the Bloom's taxonomy. In 1956, Professor Benjamin Bloom divided the education objectives into three connected domains to create a well-rounded learning experience. So, cognitive domain people, or more kind of a neuroscience, psychology, computer science, focus on encoding, storage, retrieval of information. It happens there in that cognitive domain, and all kind of emotional things, dealing with feelings, emotions, attitudes, values, appreciation, motivation, enthusiasm, all these things happens in the affective domain. And there is other part that the psychomotor, more kind of a kinesthetic person, refers to the physical and motor skills, bodily coordination and movement, that is kind of dance, art related things. So how our anatomy of holistic learning, first, what we saw in the two parts of the brain is thinking process. Now we are relating the holistic learning with the philosophy of the neurosciences on the basis of the philosophy of Benjamin Bloom's taxonomy. So now zooming into this cognitive engine, exactly, data is encoded, it is stored, and it comes as the retrieval as the outcome. Now, this process, the cognitive science, is interdisciplinary field, merging the psychology and the neuroscience and the linguistic philosophy to understand the brain. Why? Because psychology is exactly, neuroscience is taking the information, psychology is analyzing the information exactly, linguistic is the output, which is comes as the. So, the successful memory and the learning requires a flawless execution of these structural steps. In all the learning process, the information has to go in, it has to be retrieved, it has to be stored, understood, stored, and it has to come as the output at what I have learned that way. So a great many people think that they are thinking when they are merely rearranging these prejudices. Thinking happens when we exact what impact it has created, actual output. Many people think that I've learned something, but what did you encode? What did you decode? What did you analyze? What is there in your memory? What has gone into the memory? Have you understood it? Will you be able to produce it? That depends upon the output. So you have to really code this process very clearly. So in this critical thinking, in this process, that's how critical thinking comes and helps. Now, the way of critical thinking is very, very, very indispensable for a learner, educator, for everyone as such, because we think in different ways in different situations. Say, for example, according to the psychology theory, there are about 6 ways of thinking. That is 6 thinking hats. It is called as 6 thinking hats. The white hat focuses purely on the data information and the neural flats, and it identifies what you know and what gaps need to be filled in. When it comes to the red hat, the person will move with the intuition, the gut feelings, and the raw reactions without any logical justification. My mind says it, I'm going with that. That kind of a person is a red hat thinking person. Sometimes it highlights the risks and weaknesses of the potential flaws. It is vital for the risk management and spotting dangers. Some people will have the capacity to identify the danger and they will be telling you. So that time they are thinking with the black hat. So some will have this capacity of exploring the value benefits and positive outcomes. It is like looking an upside of an idea. That is the way, thinking beyond the limits in the sense like in a creative manner. And so that way, it's like really putting on your creative thinking hat. Then encouraging out-of-box brainstorming, alternatives, possibilities, and fresh concepts. Some people who are very analytical, they will have this green hat that is based on the critical thinking. Blue hat is the process, manages the meeting structure, sets very organized person, set of sequence, summaries the final decision. They will be more like an event planner and they will be organizing things. So people definitely think in different ways in different situations. So if we know that this is the capacity of the person, we can categorically, we can group our students also in this way, that he is a white hat thinking person, he's a red hat thinking person, he's a black hat thinking person. So that way you can do. Now, why this is important? Why this? How does it really help in the learning process? If we have identified our students with the different thinking capacities, how does it really help in the learning process? That's what we are going to.
In 1985, a Maltese physician called Edward de Bono published a book called Six Thinking Hats. The book described a powerful technique for looking at decisions from a number of important perspectives. The premise of the method is that the human brain thinks in a number of distinct ways, which can be deliberately challenged. If you look at a problem with the Six Thinking Hats technique, then you will solve it using all approaches. Your decisions will mix ambition, skill, sensitivity, creativity, and good contingency planning. So, how do you use the tool? You can use Six Thinking Hats in meetings or on your own. Each thinking hat is a different style of thinking. Let's have a look at what they each mean. When wearing the white hat, you focus on data, study the information you have on the subject, and see what you can learn from it. When you switch to the red hat, you will look at problems using intuition and emotion, sometimes called gut feeling. Try to think how people will react to your decision emotionally. The black hat has you looking at all the bad points of the decision. This is important as it highlights the weak points in your plan. Switch to positive thinking when wearing the yellow hat. This will help you focus on the benefits of the decision and the value in it. This can be really useful when everything looks gloomy and difficult. The green hat is all about creativity. Let the creative juices flow and develop creative solutions to problems. Finally, the blue hat is about process control. When wearing this hat, you decide which hat is the most suitable for the stage of decision making. For example, if ideas are running dry, you may decide to switch to the green hat. By analyzing your decision wearing the 6 different hats we've talked about, you can feel confident about your decision, knowing you've considered all points of view.
So, if we categorically group our children into 6 hats, 6 thinking hats people, it will be easy for us as educators to assign the task to them accordingly. And otherwise, you can raise a question and you can say, put on your blue hat, put on your green hat, put on your yellow hat. So they will know exactly, just to have a very creative and fun way of learning in the classroom. Like any task which has been assigned, how you want them to analyze the situation. Say, there is a game which is called as game of hot potato. You segregate the class into six different groups and you will say that, okay, these people, 6 different hats are there and you will assign different tasks and they will be working. And you can say that this group will have great red hat, this group will have green hat, this group will have yellow hat. That means yellow people, that they are very optimistic and they should have a very creative, optimistic way of thinking. And if they have to have a green hat, then they should be very creative. Like that, you can segregate your classroom into 6 different groups and you can assign the task. Or you can always tell them, put on your green hat, put on your red hat, put on your blue hat, that way, to make it more lively. Now, this kind of thinking in different possibilities, perspectives, we call it as critical thinking. So we are doing in a fun way, but it is actually enabling the critical thinking process. So what is the golden rule behind it? That is analyzing problem without allowing personal bias, emotions or assumptions to influence thought. That is impartial research is the foundation. So what is critical thinking? It is the analytical process of understanding a problem through fact-based exploration, asking thoughtful questions and collecting the data with the objective analysis. So that's how it is. That is, say for example, if you want me to give an example, I've just taken an example also. If resolving a conflict between the 2 employees, critical thinking means understanding the factual nature of the conflict rather than siding with emotions or having other motions. So what are these 5 pillars of critical thinking in this process? Again, let me go back. First, we thought about the 2 sides of the brain, how the brain thinks and how the thought process works. Then we have come to the critical thinking process, exactly according to the psychomotor, cognitive, assertive, and psychomotor domains, and how the thinking process established in a human mind. And moving on to we combine it with the critical thinking process, exactly naming it as it's an analytical data and the process of thinking, exactly. Now, when we come on to the critical thinking process, first is only thought, only thinking process. Second is that exactly critically thinking about it. Now, what are the different steps of the critical thinking is? First is observation. We need to identify the exacting situation. If it is a problem, problem. Otherwise, task means task, or otherwise situation means situation. Observe. Second is analysis. Evaluate the situation. Exactly what is happening. Why is it happening? How is it happening? If it happens, then if it happens this way, yes, this is. If it doesn't happen this way, it is this. So evaluation. That's the analysis. That's the second one. Inference. Then conclude it. Come to a decision saying that, okay, this has happened because of this. Then communication. That is sharing it. And problem solving, and solving the problem with the execution. So this sequential framework of resolving conflicts, addressing challenges, and creating solution is the process of critical thinking. So this, we have to make sure that every single task that we give in the classroom is being aligned in the process. So as we have seen, the critical thinking skills, if at all the child doesn't have, if at all that's the process, these are also skills, exactly. So if we align it to the skills, if the child doesn't have this ability to notice and predict opportunities, problems, and solution, you will have to inculcate as an educator, you should help that child to get those observation skills. If the child is not understanding and interpreting the data or other information, the learning process, project, or the classroom activity, then you will have to work on that particular analysis of that child, analysis factor of the child, and equip the child with that skill. And drawing conclusion, child is not able to draw conclusion with the relevant data and information given with the personal knowledge and experience, then you have to work on that particular skill in developing that skill for the child. Fourth, if the child is not having a very strong and communication skill, receiving information verbally, non-verbally, or in writing, whichever way it is, the child is suffering, then you should working on those skills. And problem solving. If the child is not able to analyze and communicate the information to identify and troubleshoot solutions, then you should work on that. So if these are the just pillars of critical thinking, and then they are also the skills that the learner should have. So if you feel that the child is lagging in this area, then we should work on that. Say, for example, if it is observation, what is that? The skill, the starting point of the critical thinking. That's the first starting point. And the ability to sense and identify a new problem, understand why it has come, and predict what it might occur based on the experience. That is how to build your muscle in the sense how you can understand. Slow down the pace of processing the information. If at all the child, if you have identified the child is having a problem with observation, then what you can modify it, slow down the pace of processing the information. Train yourself to pay closer attention to the surrounding, thoughtful mindfulness techniques, etc. Actively listen. Make the child listen and spot hidden trends in behavior, transaction, or the data processing. So this is what we can help with. This is only an example which I'm trying to give, and then when we do further session, then we can know more. If the child is having analysis as a problem, the concept is effectively evaluating the situation by knowing the exact which facts, data, information are important, gathering unbiased research, and accessing findings objectively. If the child has that problem, if at all the person has a problem, force yourself to interpret entirely the new information to make rational decisions. Take on unfamiliar experiences to push yourself for the conceptual thinking, or otherwise, example is reading a book or completely foreign concept, or enroll in an online math class to stretch your analytical pathways. Because analytics means you should start working on your own such that you are able to apply. Then when you apply, then you will be able to arrive at the analytical data. So you have to give more examples and work assignments of those kind of working on an individual factor, but under very guidance, superficial guidance. So third is that inference. If the child is having inferential deficit, and the child is not able to develop answers, draw conclusions based on limited information, relying on the technical and industry specific knowledge, then What is required? Focus on making calculated, educated guesses rather than jumping to rather conclusion. Slow down to look for and evaluate clues across the multiple formats or images. Change if it is data, if it is in the word format, or if it is read format. Just make it more creative as the way that you can give it to the child, such that you bring the interest. So, for example, a car mechanic diagnosing a randomly stalling the engine based purely on the available secondary clues. So give them that situation such that they will be, give them more kind of that situation such that they will be able to develop this kind of a skill. If communication is the problem, the ability to clearly explain and debate and discuss issues and possible solutions with colleagues and stakeholders. So what you can do, actively engage in difficult discussions with where participants strongly disagree. The more practice you give, they gain knowledge and they gain the practice and they gain the skill. So maintain very active listening, strict respect to truly understanding opposing points of view. So practice explaining your own ideas in completely calm, rational manner without emotional escalation. If suppose the fifth one, problem solving, if the child is not able to solve the problem, ultimate execution phase, that the process of gathering all observation, analysis, inference, communication to identify, troubleshoot the actual real world problems. So shift from passive thinking to active execution, combine the data sorting into collaborative development of implement fixes, such that the exact operational workflow for the phase is detailed on the next slide. So if this is exactly this how the loop works, the whole problem solving group, if at all you're giving an assignment or a task to the child, if you're equipping the child or the students with the critical thinking operational practice, they should be able to identify the problem, understand the problem, infer the root causes exactly and possible solution, collect data through impartial research, organize and sort findings, execute the developed solutions, analyze what results, what worked and what failed. So improve the solution iteratively. So this is not only for a classroom situation, even for a normal life situation, this really applies. So how to develop the skills? If at all these are the skills which are to be developed, how we can develop these skills? What we can do, put on the thinking caps according to the different situation. Now, this is a test to test your ability. This video which I'm going to play now, observe to infer on the content of the video. How fast you are able to observe, how far you are able to register, how far you are able to give it back. That's what we are going to see. Okay? So you're ready to put on your critical thinking caps? I think so. And get your creative juices flow. So I'm going to now stop sharing my screen. I thought I will just take some inferences from you. Who can tell me what did you observe in the video? What was shown in the video? What was that? What registered in your mind? Anybody who has got answers for it, you can tell me and then we can. Did you watch the video? How many of you watched the video? You can show me thumbs up or show me your hand here in the emotions. Okay. Ms. Prema, tell me, what did you register? What registered in your mind from the video? You can open up and speak. Anybody, anyone for that matter. Yes. Tell me, what did you see in the video? What was shown in the video based on the critical thinking skills? You are losing time. Yes, Ms. Manju, tell me. Anyone? Have you messaged anything? Otherwise, you can message me in chat box. Would you like to do that? Okay. What I will do, you can message observation. Okay, good. Okay, observation. That's good. Then, what did you observe? Then I'll have to ask the other question. What did you observe? So whatever answers that you have got, I would really request you to mention it in the chat box, because we will come back to this activity again to see exactly what registered in your mind, how you have responded to that problem, to the task, and how you have analyzed it, what went into your mind and what you are able to give it. Okay? So let's go ahead now with the presentation. So once again, how to develop these skills? This was a very simple task that I wanted to do with you. Let's see, okay, how best we are able to move forward. Now, other questions which can be asked in interview, apart from the classroom situation in life, is that when you go for interview, what biggest problem the world is facing today? That's again a critical thinking question. It's otherwise called a Socratic question. You have to analyze and answer. What is more important, being right or being kind? Or what would a perfect day look like for you? People ask you these questions, yes or no? So, depending upon the situation, depending upon the question that you are being asked, depending upon the task that you are being put to, you put on different thinking hats and you answer it. What is that you are most proud of? So these kind of questions, very, thought-provoking questions, yes? So these kind of questions that we should incorporate in our learning process, right? So thereby, we are not thinking about critical thinking something outside. It's not that when you're preparing a lesson plan, when you're preparing a resource, no, I have to ask a thought-provoking question. I have to bring critical thinking here, not like that. So it should be a very open-ended question, which applies with the mind process, which works with the mind process, and it will make the people think. So that's what critical thinking is all about. So put on your critical thinking cap in a real-life situation, and you can take a different example from the real-life situation is take additional industry courses that demands heavy analysis, or actively volunteer to solve problems for your employer. Actively involve as an educator, as a teacher to solve problems between the students in the classroom, even that is okay. And seek objective assignments of your current skill from colleagues and manager to find blind spots. Every institution these days, they have this system of appraisal. So they will mention that this skill is missing or this is missing. So those kind of reviews are very important such that we can definitely do that. And Learn by Chapter. If you are enrolled with Learn by Chapter, there are always diagnostic assessment which will help you in a classroom situation. And this is the best way of doing it. The best way of doing it. You don't need to worry about anything. You have to just register and the resources are free so that you will be able to use them, and definitely this will really help. So play solo or cooperative games which require analysis and inference. So the world we have created is the process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. So if that's the process, we have thought about, we have analyzed, we have seen till now about the process of thought process, how it happens in the brain, how the thinking happens in the three domains, that is cognitive, assertive, and psychomotor domains, based on the Bloom's taxonomy philosophy, and then aligned it with the critical thinking process, taking the critical thinking hats as example at different situations exactly, and moving ahead. Now, how can this go to the edge, connecting thinking to learning? How thinking can transform the standard curriculum. The curriculum is so rigid, it's so standard. How we can integrate critical thinking to make it into a competitive advantage. Now, thinking happens how and where? It happens everywhere. In an environment saturated with information, we don't need to teach. Everything is available in the internet and everything is already there. So, we have to have something very creative. We have to put on our green hats, isn't it? So, the location, to make it more creative, location and mechanics of true thinking have to be more critical in the whole process. And for doing this, we learn by Chapter, we do it more in a more easy way such that your whole system of working will change without you realizing the whole thing that you have changed in the working. So, thinking is the core base of any curriculum. Thinking determines what we learn, how we learn, what we think is important to learn, what effort we should explain, what we think is true, what we think is false, how things should be viewed, whether our learning is of high or low quality, whether our learning is deep or superficial. So, it's all these things are determined only by the process of our thinking. So, thinking is the core of our curriculum, where the inputs are what we learn, what we think is important to learn, what effort we should spend. That's our effort. Processing is how we learn, what we think is true or false, how things should be viewed. Outcomes is definitely which is of a very high or low quality or deep or superficial. So this is the whole depth spectrum of the thinking process. So with this, in this whole architecture of the holistic thinking, where it involves knowledge, where it involves emotion, where it involves a psychomotor, there is a holistic quotient, holistic intelligence which is being developed that is called as a holistic learning. That is, it involves all the three domains. That is cognitive domain, that is the mental domain, psychomotor domain, that's the physical domain, emotional domain, that is the affective domain, that is one should be able to balance all these quotients very effectively to make our learning process success with holistic thinking and projecting the logic from emotion. That is exactly with analyzed, you cannot have biased thoughts. It means you should be very strong and you should be able to analyze the facts without allowing the affective domain to compromise on the logic. So what does it determine? Critical thinking determines defining a problem, asking questions. Children should be able to ask questions when they are stuck, examining the evidence, analyzing assumptions and biases, avoiding emotional reasoning, avoiding oversimplification, considering others' reviews and interpretations, tolerating ambiguity and metacognition, understanding how we process the information. So, if you are a critical thinker, you will be able to have all these skills with you. So the critical thinking skills of analyzing and evaluating issues and ideas, you will be able to evaluate, you will be able to recognize, you will be able to develop arguments such that you will be able to put forth your ideas, analyze, use models and simulations from the experiences from the outside environment, troubleshoot the problem, interpret the data, draw and text conclusions, evaluate risks, consider perspective synthesis, and identify obstacles. So with all these critical thinking skills, you will be able to succeed. But in a classroom situation, it is quite very indispensable that we should adopt the critical thinking strategies. So what are the characteristics of a critical thinking classroom? Where the learners or the leaders, they are more involved in the process of learning, where beliefs and stances change if and when new data emerges. So, what beliefs and stances change means what the previous knowledge that they have, they will be able to erase it and learn something new. Erase in the sense that will be there, that will go, the old knowledge will replace, the new knowledge will replace the old knowledge. That's the learning. Emotions are separated from reason. So they will not go with the emotional thinking process. They will logically think and address it and reason it. That is a intellectual divergence. In the sense, they will not look at maths as maths one subject, science as science one subject, social as subject. They will integrate the whole process and they will work in collaboration, in integration of all the subjects together. Inquiry driven and not curriculum driven, where curriculum is given the textbook already, where the students go perform, in the sense they engage in the classroom, they explore, they experience, and they excel, and they enumerate. So there is an inquiry-driven process which is being there, and the student asks more questions than the teacher. So definitely it is not chalk talk method, where students are involved in the process and they will be more engaged. The questions are revisited, updated, and revised, such that everyone will have a contribution, as I told you, according to their thinking capacity, according to the different hats that they are wearing. As in the beginning of the session also, I mentioned about the hot potato into different groups. So the claims are required to withstand the clinical intellectual scrutiny. Unpredictability and disruption is not allowed. And truth is based on the reason and affectation rather than opinion or belief. And the language of reason is used. The language of reason means or effective communication. You say English means English. Other language, regional language means regional. And the questions are valued over answers. So the students take the whole responsibility of their own learning and they will excel. So this experiential learning is what is the main characteristic of a critical thinking classroom. Now, as a teacher, as an educator, if you have to incorporate all these things in your teaching strategies, if you have to bring all these kinds of resources, it's going to be very strenuous for you. It's going to be a real task. Thereby, if you register with Learn by Chapter, all the Learn by Chapter resources so effectively brings these kind of resources automatically into your system. So, when this happens, there are two different learning strategies which is being adopted in the classroom. Didactic method, the normal original method, teacher-centered, what to think, transmit knowledge, chalk talk method. Where critical thinking method, it is more kind of student-centered, how to think and facilitate learning. So the learning strategies, didactic method, the knowledge is addictive, experience and values are more kind of irrelevant because we'll be relating to something which is given in the book because we're delivering the book, right? Here we are teaching the book. Here we're teaching the students. So the doubt and the questioning we can believe, broad and superficial, direct path to truth, where the critical learning process, knowledge is holistic, experience and values are essential, questioning is the sign of learning, focused, deep and indirect path to truth. So when our didactic methods these are not bad, but they are also good in the sense when to use that. Not definitely in a classroom situation, but in a corporate structure where you are establishing a structure in your office, identifying concepts, facts, principles, presenting in large groups, relying on large amount of information. So there are places where we have to disseminate the information. What information that we have got, we have to communicate it effectively so that people understand. That kind of situation, definitely these direct methods are optimal. But for a classroom, definitely, what is critical thinking? Critical thinking methods are always good because they engage exploration, creativity, critical analysis, indirect paths to understanding and multiple learning styles. So critical thinking is a self-directed process by which one takes deliberate steps to think with the highest level of quality. I mean, the students. How learn by chapter prudently builds the self-directed critical thinking. So that's not learn by chapter does not simply tell the learner what to think. That's the thing. It systematically guides the learner how to think. Say, for example, taking an example of the mathematics, a shop offers 30% discount followed by an additional 10%. Is that the same as 40%? So that's the thing. Instead of immediately revealing the answer, learn by chapter takes the learner through the deliberate thinking journey of understand, question, attempt, analyze, verify, correct, reflect, and then master it. So this process learned by chapter does it so effectively, and the student independently interprets the problem because the student can choose their own problems, their own assignment. They interpret the problem, recall the relevant concept, attempts for a solution, compare possible approaches, uses hints as and when required, and checks for a work solution, identify where the reasoning went wrong, and attempts similarly competency-based questions again and again. So the just resources are so free that student can attempt the question any number of times. And if they want to change the question, they can change the question. So there is a freeness to learn. They can learn anytime, anywhere, even at home, not necessarily within that 40 minutes. Once they're enrolled here, they have that freeness of learning from the home, going back to the same lesson, working on the assignment even from home. So this really helps in the same process. So the important shift is that the learner is not passively receiving an answer. The learner is continuously asking questions. What do I know? What is being asked in the question? What concept applies here? Why did I choose this method? Does my answer make sense? Can I solve it differently? So this is where learn by chapter prudently develop critical thinking, and the platform becomes the scaffold and the learner gradually becomes a thinker. So learn by chapter's critical thinking principle is that don't answer first. Create pathway that enable the learner to discover, justify, and validate the answer independently. So, learn by chapter transforms the teacher-directed learning to guided learning and to self-directed learning in the whole process. So, enhancing the critical thinking through a classroom talk is that very respectful dialogue is being shared with shared inquiry, deeper understanding, and a collaborative reasoning. The whole thing, how does it work exactly? How learn by chapter is able to do this critical thinking classroom talk scenario is that, say, for example, topic of science, where water conservation is necessary even in places that receive a good rainfall. Yeah? Instead of simply asking students to give the answer, learn by chapter provides a chapter-linked competency-based question or a real-life situation where students explore the concept first through LBC's micro-learning content and then discuss the possible answers in the classroom, either in the form of a talk show or in the form of a circle time activity or in the form of a demonstration or in the form of a research paper submission, anything, any project that they wish to choose, they can choose. So with a respectful dialogue, the student explain that platform viewpoints and listen to the classmates also who may have a different reasoning. With this shared inquiry, with the pair share method of collaborative learning, the teacher extends LBC's question. If our city receives enough rainfall, what might we still face? Why we are facing water shortages. So that's the problem statement. The teacher leaves the question open to the classroom and the student investigate and give you the answer together and of courses together and from their way of perspective. Collaborative listening, groups compare factors such as population growth, groundwater depletion, wastage, storage and climate variability and define which factors are the most important where they act as a catalyst for that. With a deeper understanding, students move beyond memorizing to save water to understanding the relationship between the availability, consumption, conservation, and sustainability. So it is a whole mapping. The whole learning process is being mapped with engaging the learner, giving them a chance to explore, giving them a chance to experience, giving them a chance to equip with the necessary skills, and they excel. So they are with the 5 E's of learning process, such that learn by chapter turns a chapter into something what students might learn into something they question and discuss, defend and understand. So it is a more kind of very diplomatic way of handling, but exactly a constitutional way of handling where everyone is given a chance to speak and everyone's view is being registered. So how you can identify in this happening, how you can identify the critical thinking and non-critical thinking process. A critical thinker will enter the question with Google, look into some responses, assess the reliability and form their opinion. You will read the news item and will consider how they present it. A non-critical thinker in the classroom might just copy paste the first or second list or in the short, and the non-critical thinker would be more likely to accept the contents of the news item as a fact. Just bring it and read to the classroom. So this is how you will be able to identify the students, the critical thinkers and non-critical thinkers. With this divergent parts of information processing, a non-critical thinker and the critical thinker, there's what is the thing which has been given in a very clear way with the engine of originality. Standard acceptable answer, which is kind of now relating it to the domains, the 3 domains. Standard acceptable answer is more kind of a cognitive domain, and with the psychomotor, innovative, one who is very effective is going to come with an innovative answer. Psychomotor is going to exert exactly to work on, demonstrate that. So the good test scores open the door, but critical thinking determines the outcome. It is the engine that transforms the standard academic complaints into memorable essays, projects, and interview success. Now, why advanced critical thinking skills give students an edge? How? That will be a question, I think. So, in the advanced necessary thinking skills that enable the student to stand out in the school, in every day, and later in university and even in the workplace. So, once the skills are imbibed, they will not go back, they will not change. Once these kind of thought process, once they know that this skill is being imbibed in you, you will not go back to the same thing, right? So this is once and for all. It's once a time, once it is inculcated, once it is imbibed, then it's there with you forever. They distinguish between giving a standard acceptable answer and with an innovative original answer that will make their essay, project, completion, entry or interview more memorable with their own personal insights. So when it comes to interviews in the future also, good test scores might get your child through the door, but the critical thinking will actually determine the interview outcome. And ability to think critically will help them to challenge and improve ideas, see things from different perspectives, ask right questions and work out what is available, what is not available, or what is available, is it a valuable information or is it authentic? So they will do the research work basically from that mindset, put together into a convincing argument, make informed choices about everything from study options to personal health, recognize how messages aimed at them through advertising, whether they see like anything which comes in the newspaper, Instagram or any media, they will not believe it. They will just look for the authenticity of it. Say, for example, even many of you might be doing it. If you're going to get a reference of a company, what we normally do, even for a restaurant, we go and check the Google reviews. That means you are thinking critically. So like that, very simple examples, making ulterior motives, question assumptions, and look beyond the obvious answers, will argue persuasion. That is, in the sense, like even they will be able to give you this a normal situation in an English classroom, like when you're teaching a story or say, for example, Shakespeare's The Tempest. If you are going to give a very question saying that, think about this one example I'm just trying to give you, think about different climax for the story. So this kind of a critical thinking student, the critical thinker will come up with a very innovative way of ending that particular story. So that's how we should have our open-ended questions that will make our students think. So ultimate competitive edge is that advanced necessary skills distinguish students in school, university, and the modern workplace. And it's not about knowing answers, it's about looking beyond them. So moving ahead, the critical thinking playbook. That is how we can effectively use exclusively in a classroom scenario. That's what we're going to see. So it's a tactile field guide for parents, educators, and guiding ourselves to cultivate a deeper analytical mindset for our children. First is that a prism of clarity. Why critical thinking is the ultimate competitive edge? Because it gives the prism of clarity. With the highest level of quality, with high quality input, they will not accept any kind of normal, very simple work. Result is rigorous, defensible, and elevated thinking. Self-directed process, whatever process it is, they will work on their own with the engine of critical thought process being internal motivation and external prompts. They will take reviews from everybody. Deliberate the steps very clearly, which requires active intentional methodologies and rather than passive reaction. So, how learn by chapter? Taking learn by chapter as an incorporation, thinking at a very highest level of quality. Again, take an example of science lesson. A plant kept near the window bends towards sunlight. If your question is, why does this happen? What would happen if the pot is removed and were rotated every day? So, if you ask a question, the students will not immediately answer because they will go find the answers for themselves exactly. Instead of giving the answers abruptly, spontaneously, at the same time, they will go and work on it, explore, experience it, and then they will come and give you with a more kind of a self-directed process, saying that let me think. Rather than asking the student merely to recall the definition of phototrophism, learn by chapter applies. Take the learner through 3 different stages as shown. Self-directed process, let me think. The student independently revisits chapter concept, connects slide, auxin, plant response, and attempts a question before looking for any support. Deliberate steps, let me reason. The learner moves conscientiously to observe, recall, reconnect, predict, apply, and justify. This is your guessing, and the student has to explain why. So the question where they're going to answer is, yes, why did this happen? The plant is bending towards the sunlight. Why did this happen? Instead of that, the question is changed. Why the plant bends and predicts what rotation could change. So there comes the critical thinking, exactly. Not that just the plant is changing, the plant is moving towards sunlight. What could be the other rotation of what could be the other rotation that will come in the process? With the high quality input, now they allow the students to defend their answer, that the learner finally produces an evidence-based response, that the shoot bends towards light due to the unequal growth associated with the auxin distribution. Regularly rotating the pot changes the direction of the light stimulus, so the growth direction continuously readjusts. So this is how learn by chapter scientifically make the student understand the concept and apply it, go work on it, research for it, and then they will be able to give the answer because the learning happens anytime, anywhere, and they go and learn at their own pace, at their own interest, and they will come up with their own reviews. So what the LBC achieves through that is the traditional learning, question, recall, and answer, and learn by chapter says that question, think, explore, connect, apply, reason, verify, improve, and master. So learn by chapter does not measure whether the child knows the chapter. It progressively challenges the child to use the chapter to think. So the information age dilemma, that is the passive consumer, as we have seen the difference in the critical thinking process, exactly. How they interpret the media. I gave this example before only. That what is given in the media, what news comes in the media, they won't really exactly go, at the least thing that they will put it in ChatGPT to check whether this news is new. So that shows the critical thinking process. So they will come back, they will gain this advantage. So how learn by chapter converts a passive consumer into a critical thinker. Scenario, electric vehicles are completely pollution free. Is it true or false? We don't know. So a passive learner may search online and see EV, there is electrical vehicle, have zero tail-like emissions and immediately conclude, true, electrical vehicle do not cause pollution. But learn by chapter, however, will make the learner interrogate the claim rather than simply accept it. The chapter linked learning and competency-based question prompt the student to connect multiple concepts. Where does the electricity come from? How batteries are manufactured? What happens to the old batteries? How do EV emissions compare with petrol vehicles across the complete life cycle? The learner therefore moves through the critical thinking sequence of information, question, connect concepts, and compare evidence, analyze, justify, conclude, etc., etc. And the student's final response becomes more nuanced. So the EV produce no tail light emissions, but calling them completely pollution-free is inaccurate. Their overall environmental impact also depends on the electricity generation, battery production, and end-of-life management. So there, how Learn by Chapter makes a difference in the whole concept. So, from a passive consumer, as the one who is digesting whatever thrown to them, Learn by Chapter's critical thinker receives information, questions if, connects it to the chapter, tests assumptions, evaluate evidences, and forms independent conclusion. So it's not merely giving students more information at information-rich world. It develops an ability to decide what information deserves to be believed. So Learn by Chapter moves the learner from searching for answers to thinking about the answers. So thereby, it works as a clarity filter, exactly, asking the right questions, ulterior motives, questioning assumptions with informed choices. So this, again, we have gone through this, so I'm going to skip that, I'm sorry, but they will give you the presentation with a multi-dimensional view. So our perspective of seeing the circle is circle, but another perspective of seeing this as a rectangle. So this is how combining the viewpoints. How does this happen? Definitely with combining viewpoints, taking reviews from everybody, we can understand the whole shape, and the critical thinking relies on the ability to see the things from different perspectives in order to relentlessly challenge and improve their ideas. So, standing out in the classroom, baseline is just giving a standard acceptable answer, communication, relay, memory is fast. But with the edge, the student edge, was raised beyond the board, will give an innovative original answer that makes the essay, project, and competition more entry memorable with a more enhanced communication skill of putting together a convincing argument and argues persuasively. So beyond the threshold, good tests might give you through the door for an interview, for an exam, etc. But critical thinking skill will determine the actual outcome of how you are, how you have developed, how you have evolved yourself. Exactly. So the professional imperative is that critical thinking is essential for a professional practice. And it is inherently interactive and engaging, where professional organizations actively recognize the overriding the value of critical thinking. It can must be utilized continuously in modern classroom. So if you ask me, exactly, 12th critical thinking example, navigating conflicting health advice. Anybody says this medicine is good or bad, something like that. Fact checking before sharing a viral post, reflecting a personal mistake without shame, or debating respectfully with someone who disagrees with you. These are the different situations. So when we are doing an interactive workshop like thing, you can take these situations and give them to the participants as notes and ask them to work on that and bring their inferences. So notice inner shifts during silence and reflection, deciding whether to stay in a relationship, or asking your child what they need first, choosing the boundaries that protect the energy, creating a personal budget that reflects your values, very important for students, preparing for a job interview with the questions for the company, assessing a self-help book before implementing the advice, choosing a career change with purpose, but not panic. So, based on that, if you're going to develop a professional ecosystem or a critical practitioner, how does it exactly? Gleaning the subjective information, seeking objective information, determining with the indicators and contradictions, working on that, planning and adoption, documentation, referrals, and overall with the professional development. So with the arc of advantage, stage 1 is input, stage 2 is the interview, and third is the application of the professional practice. So these kind of help the student to stand out with the same skills, but define a very professional standard. So critical thinking, can it be used in a classroom situation? Yes. And it is because it is interactive and engaging, and it is essential for the professional practice, and the professional organizations recognize the value of critical thinking. That's what we have seen so far. So why is it important? How does it improve the teaching learning? How does the skill of critical thinking help a learner in the learning process?
We have a world of problems to solve. Your students have the skills to solve those problems. To become a good problem solver, students must be able to think in two ways, creatively and critically. Creative comes from the Latin word crescere, meaning to grow. When you think creatively, you grow and produce ideas. Critical comes from the Greek word kritikos, meaning to judge. When you think critically, you judge or sort through the ideas you have created. To be a good problem solver, you work back and forth between critical and creative thinking as you think critically to question the problem, think creatively to plan a solution, think critically to gather information, think creatively to create the solution, think critically to evaluate the solution, think creatively to present the solution. This kind of thinking is used in science as you form a hypothesis, in math as you solve a word problem, in language arts as you use the reading or writing process. How can you teach your students the critical and creative thinking skills they need to solve the problems of the world?
So, in our learning, it's read it, write it, apply it, say it, hear it. That's what. But when you use critical thinking, how it will help you? Sorry. So, have you asked as an educator these kind of questions in your classroom? If not, let's start asking these kind of questions, because every class that we go, we just deliver exactly our textbook, our session, and we just come out. Do we get time to speak to them, to get to understand them better? So, because that is very important. It is very important that we become a facilitator. We see the discussion, encourage questions, challenge one another, focus on the way, how they think, why do they think that, foster experimentation, and provide feedback for them. Judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers. So how Learn by Chapter does it? Definitely. Because this session is totally focusing on Learn by Chapter. Every single topic that we take, we try to integrate it with how Learn by Chapter is effectively using these kind of techniques in their delivery, in their incorporation, in their integration. That's what we need to highlight. We are trying to highlight. The strength of Learn by Chapter is that critical thinking does not have become another subject or additional burden to the teacher. It can be embedded within the chapter already being taught. Mathematics, percentage and profit loss. Instead of shopping, I've just taken an example. I'm just giving time to give one example. Instead of shopping, a shirt costs rupees 1,000 and sold at a rate of 20% discount. Find the selling price. And that's when Learn by Chapter progressively change the same curriculum concept into a shop offers 20% off. Shop B offers 10%. So there's a comparison. So followed by another 10% off. Both claim to give a better deal. Which would you choose and why? So which question you like? You tell me that which one you likes better. The first question is a normal question. Second question is a very creative question. So what happens? What does it do? It kindles. It ignites that spark in the child's mind, as we've seen in the beginning. So as an educator, our job is to just put that spark in the mind so they will go fine. Now what happens? Teacher becomes a facilitator. Instead of demonstrating one formula, the teacher asks the student to investigate, and Learn by Chapter seeks a discussion saying that the chapter linked to the question creates a question where there may be intuitive but incorrect assumption. Encouraging question is 10%, 10% equals 20%, and students challenge each other. One group may say yes, another group calculate with the successive discounts and demonstrate why the result differs, and focuses on they find out the answer of why, how, what, it's correct or wrong, and they come up with their own answer. The student finally will be able to explain, convince people why the percentages cannot simply be added in this situation. Fosters experimentation, change ₹1,000 to ₹2,500, change the discounts, etc., whether the principle remains the same or not, explore the possibility, and Learn by Chapter gives hints, solutions, recommendations, and if they go wrong, they give their remedial answers as well. Solution, chapter-wise practice, help the students to identify where the reasoning has failed and not merely the final answer is wrong. So, Learn by Chapter drives the student to think and come up with their own answer in their own creative perspective, and that's how it's totally different. In this era, definitely you will understand that the whole world is flooded, bombarded with information, landscape of overload of information. So the rote repetition is no longer possible. How can you memorize so many facts? So what we need to do is analyze and decode whether it is okay for me, whether it is going to help me. So this kind of analysis process is what we need to imply. We need to imbibe in our teaching learning process, and so that the critical thinking will definitely help the students to excel. So how do we exactly foster critical thinking in a classroom? Strategies and benefits. Developing critical thinking is very crucial because it enhances the academic performance. Critical thinking analyze and understand complex materials, leading to better academic outcomes. They develop the problem-solving skills, as these skills are essential for identifying the problem, generating solution, and making decisions. And they will have informed citizenship, as critical thinkers are better equipped to engage in democratic processes and make informed decisions about social and political issues. And it creates a lifelong learning opportunities for students, such that the critical thinking fosters a love for learning and an ability to adapt to new information and changing circumstances. So this everybody knows, like Bloom's taxonomy of knowledge, understanding, application, synthesis, evaluation, the same thing. This 50 critical thinking strategies for learning: analyze, interpret, infer, teacher thought, separate cause and effect, prioritize, deconstruct, reverse, write, reflect, all these things. Definitely sequential, challenge something, predict, defend, and adopt right mindset. These are the different strategies which are normally used in a classroom. And how we foster this culture of critical thinking: encourage questions and debate. Create a safe space for asking why. Students should not have the fear to ask this question to the teacher, to share the different viewpoints. Give the real problem-solving opportunities for them. And offer training and tools. Equip them with the skills. Lead by example. Recognize critical thinking. Build psychological safety. Balancing, if you remember the holistic intelligence that we're talking about, the knowledge, intellectual intelligence, emotional intelligence, and the psychomotor intelligence as well. So we have to work on all the three perspectives such that we ensure psychological safety. For this, what is required is basically the Socratic questioning. The Socratic questioning involves open-ended questions. We have seen so many questions throughout this session that stimulate critical thinking and dialogue. And this method encourages students to explore complex ideas and develop their own understanding. Teaching and classroom resources: examples of Socratic questions. What evidence supports this argument? If they're going to conclude it saying that, give me an evidence. How would you interpret this data? Give a data and ask them to interpret. Can you explain your reasoning? Why you say so? So they will come up with that. And implications of this idea. Basically, what went right and what went wrong. If you would have, what could have happened? What could have been changed? If you would have changed, what could have been better? So these kind of Socratic questions definitely should be a part and parcel of each and every lesson plan, every single lesson plan and every single lesson delivery in a classroom. Like problem-based learning, exactly. The problem-based learning involves presenting students with real-world problems. End of the day, as we have seen in the video, education is a success when it is related to life. So, involving students present students with the real-world problems to solve, as we have seen exactly with the ample examples. This approach promotes critical thinking by requiring students to research, collaborate, and apply the knowledge. Steps in problem-based learning: present a problem or a case study always, as we have seen how it has been presented with the EV vehicle or the photosynthesis, the phototrophism. So allow them to think about that and allow students to define the problem, identify what they need to learn, facilitate research and information gathering, encourage group discussions and collaborative problem solving, have students present the solutions, justify the reasoning. How Learn by Chapter effectively address this problem-based learning is that you're beginning with water conservation. Say water conservation is a topic. Learn by Chapter turns this into a real-world mission. Your city is facing a severe water shortage. Your school has been asked to reduce its daily water consumption 30%. Can you design a practical solution for it? So each one of the students will go start working on it. The student used chapter itself as a problem-solving laboratory. Real-world problem, chapter concepts, questioning, exploration, application, and solution. Instead of just asking, give me what is defining, tell me what is water conservation, what are the different ways of conserving water, why water, what are the different affectations of water. Instead of that, if you give a real problem like this, they will go explore. So they will go discover that Learn by Chapter wise content help the students identify the concept they need: water resources, groundwater, consumption, conservation. Competency-based questions prompt them to ask questions: why water is being wasted, where it is wasted, what evidence do we need? So they will go check their own home taps, record how much water is getting wasted, where is water is getting wasted, how we can reuse water. They will come and investigate the process like that. Student estimate and analyze water usage in the classroom, washrooms, gardens, drinking areas. Collaborate, teamwork, compare findings and propose different solutions rather than searching for one another. And they create and they design a 30% water saving plan. They will come up with that: rainwater harvesting, leak control, reuse, awareness of monitoring, where our job as educator is only facilitating the whole process. And each team, when they are presenting it, they will have an introgation and they will present it and explain why it should work using the concepts learned from Learn by Chapter. So creatively transforms the chapter. Learn by Chapter creatively transforms the chapter from something students have to study, something they have to use. So debate and discussions provide opportunities for students to articulate their ideas, challenge others, defend their positions. They foster critical thinking by promoting the analysis and evaluation of different viewpoints. Strategic planning, tips for effective debates and discussion: choose relevant and engaging topic. Establish clear rules and guidelines. As a facilitator, our job is this: you have to really have a very clear rules which are being set up. Even those rules you don't write, ask the students to write their own rules so that they will go by it. Encourage respectful and constructive dialogue. Require students to support their arguments with evidence and facilitate reflection on the discussion process and outcomes. So, again, sources of energy that we have seen. How Learn by Chapter effectively does this is say, for example, if you're going to talk about should India completely replace fossil fuels with renewable energy by 2040, the source of energy question from the chapter. So, students, when they use Learn by Chapter, they learn as an ammunition for thinking and augmentation. Say, learn, question, choose a position, find evidence, debate, challenge, and reflect. So they build the knowledge, they trigger the debate, they take different positions of the panel, judging panel, and they take the different roles in presentation, supporting their for the speaker or the other party, then debater, challenge one another, rethink, reflect, such that they would really take it forward, the class, in a most interesting way. So the case studies and emulations are the fifth way that we can incorporate. Case studies and simulation, instead of just giving a student, give a situation, the actual situation from the current trends. So the case studies and simulations immerse students in real life scenarios, requiring them to apply the critical thinking skills to analyze situations and make decisions and solve problems. So we implement the case studies and simulations, create realistic scenarios relevant to the subject matter, provide background information and context, encourage students to analyze the situation and identify the key issues, facilitate group discussions and decision-making processes, debrief and reflect on the outcomes learned. So how effectively Learn by Chapter? Say, for example, science chapter, our environmental, saying of merely asking the students to define biodegradable waste, ecosystems, pollution, learn by chapter, replace it inside a realistic environmental crisis. Say, for example, the question is a simulation is being done on that. A lake near your town is becoming polluted. Fishes are dying. Residents are complaining about foul water, and a nearby factory is being blamed, and the local government must act. So you are a member of environmental crisis committee. What will you do? So change your questions this way with the critical thinking process. And so the chapter knowledge is being taken as a base with the real life case studies being analyzed, and assuming roles, they will go as a member of the environmental crisis committee, decide, justify, and reflect. So this is how you should really work on critical thinking skills, how to make your classroom more effective, self-regulated learning for the learner to take the responsibility of the learning, but to enjoy the whole learning process as such. So again, last but not the least, reflective journals are also one way of having the critical thinking process in the classroom situation. Allow the students to articulate their thought process, reflecting on the learning experience and developing self-regulation skills. Encourage regular and consistent entries, provide prompts that stimulate reflection on the learning and thinking process, offer feedback with the deeper reflection and critical analysis, and use journal as a base for one-to-one discussion on conferences. So I'm sure even the high school students are more involved. Once you start incorporating these in your classroom resources, every student will be very happy to do that. So it's called as the reflective learning, and learn by chapter turns every chapter into an opportunity for students to learn, think, reflect, and improve. So after completing the chapter for force and law, learn by chapter, encourage the student to reflect on the questions such that which concept did I understand well? Where did I make the mistake? Why did I make them? What should I revise before attempting the chapter again? So through learn by chapter, chapter-wise learning, practicing question, instant feedback, performance tracking, and repeated attempts, learn by chapter enable the student to recognize the strengths and learning gaps. So this creates a digital form of reflective learning. Students merely do not see whether the answer is right or wrong, but they are encouraged to understand how they have learned, where they were thinking, where the thinking went wrong, and what should they do next. So in one powerful line, we can say that learn by chapter transforms what score did I get into what did I learn about my learning, by building reflection on self-awareness and self-regulated learners. So this is how it really helps. So fostering creative thinking in a classroom, it has numerous benefits for students: improved academic performance, enhanced problem-solving abilities, increased engagement and motivation, better communication skills, and preparing them for future challenges. So in this process, definitely, will we not have problem? Definitely we will have problem. The major problem is the time constraint. How we can incorporate these kind of activities within that 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 45 minutes. Then assessment difficulties. How we can use a variety of assessment methods such as rubrics, reflective journals, performance-based tasks, etc., etc., etc. And we have to give constructive feedback. For this, you don't need to worry. Just register yourself with Learn by Chapter, and whole process has been taken care. And it helps with the student resistance with the critical thinking activities and teacher preparation. Your prep time is totally reduced when you are able to do this exactly in a classroom situation, and you will be able to deliver a role much better. So our role is not to supply the answers, but to act as a catalyst that triggers the cognitive process. And the catalyst model is adult. Just put the spark, put the question, the spark, and lead the child with the independent thought. So that's how it really works. With the stages of development of, if you take it as a science process, developmental psychologist Jean Piaget says the stages of development show the child's cognition moves towards abstract through early on preschool and early elementary stages, and the perfect time to start. So perfect time to start. This process is not even primary, even much before that. Expectation is that critical thinking cannot be memorized in weeks like timetables. It requires patient, long-term approach to cultivate. So where we can do, if you incorporate learn by chapter, then your chapter provides the knowledge, question provides a spark, hint provides a scaffold, application provides a challenge, feedback provides a correction, and the learner provides a thinking. So with Learn by Chapter catalyst model, the chapter knowledge is there. With the question, the knowledge learning is being triggered with a question, curiosity is being raised, independent attempt is made by the student, with the guided hint by the teacher, with the reasoning, application, reflection, and mastery, definitely this helps in the whole process of the learning and pathway for the child to discover the answer. So that's how it is being mapped or integrated into. So with the cultivating a critical mindset relies on the 5 instinct on everyday methodology. Active listening, very important. And the core skill to be developed is a 2 comprehension, and the quick mechanism is summarizing in their own words. Exactly. So the second is the debate arena, if it is that multi-perspective thinking, because in a debate arena, they have to really talk with everyone, they should be able to convince. So arguing for and against complex motions, cultivating curiosity with relentless inquiry, challenging taking it for granted rituals. With the creative gym, innovative problem-solving methods with using artificial constraints to force the lateral thought. And through the media lens with analytical integration, shifting from passive consumer to active critic. So this is how we have seen how in ample examples, how Learn Which Chapter effectively does this, a whole process of transforming the whole learning into an engaged learning process with a self-regulated approach. So the true understanding is demonstrated through articulation, not just verbatim repetition. So the input is news or the book, rote repetition. It acts as a cognitive filter, and the output is summary in their own words. So broaden the word view by challenging them to argue for and against complex real world questions. So this we have seen. And turn unquestioned daily rituals. Why do we have meal times? How do we decide what animals will eat, won't eat? What do we dance? What is eyelashes for? So this kind of curiosity fuels the learning and force children to ask questions about areas of work that we take for granted. So the rule is that give them the topic. They must talk about it for 2 minutes without stopping, and there are no right or wrong answers. Anything, any question, Socratic questions that you can take. So the goal is that children won't always know the answer. They must learn to generate new angles, new approaches, and solve the problem creatively. So this is what we have seen in the beginning of the session. So 1 minute enumeration of exactly random things that you see in 60 seconds. 21 word story. Can you create a 21 word story? And 5 minute visuals. With all these circles, you have to create 5 objects. Will you be able to do it? So this is what is the whole thing. Creative thinking is all about. And the passive media consumption must be replaced with active analytical information using books, films, newspaper, documentaries, advertisements, etc., etc., etc. And you can always use them in your classroom situation. And also any kind of entertainment books, asking adults to adapt the situation from the intent from the media, etc., 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 such that we have a approach of open-endedness, such that we are able to take these high stakes of unstructured real-world challenges. So if you make your child or a student to think in this way, definitely will be successful. That is, deciding exactly what knowledge to teach requires uncomfortable trade-offs that reveals our underlying values. What knowledge is essential to think that you want your students to do, deciding on what students ought to learn makes the people go easy, and selection of the content is a critical way the values are expressed. So deciding on what they will know is definitely unavoidable, not choosing or still making a choice. So the shallow thinking is definitely a common frustration, but cultivating a deep analytical skills that requires a patience and the timeline of the cognitive growth. So if we continuously doing it, definitely our results are going to be very good. So don't just teach, don't just learn, don't just experience, don't just read or observe, don't just change, transform, don't just relate, advocate, don't just promise, prove it. Don't just criticize, encourage. Don't just think, ponder over it. Don't just take, give. Don't just see, feel it. Don't just dream, do it. Don't just hear, listen. Don't just talk, act. Don't just tell, show. Don't just exist, live. So conclusion is that fostering critical thinking in the classroom is essential for preparing the students for the challenges of the modern world. By implementing these strategies such as Socratic questioning, problem-based learning, debates, case studies, and reflective journals, educators can cultivate these vital skills. to the benefit of critical thinking extend beyond the academic performance, enhancing problem-solving abilities, communication skills, engagement, and motivation. So despite the challenges, without thoughtful planning and support, educators can create a classroom environment that promotes and values the critical thinking, ultimately leading to more successful and well-rounded students. Thank you. So with that, we have come to the end of today's session. And I'm going to ask only a few questions. How many of you have enrolled for Learn by Chapter? That you have already enrolled with Learn by Chapter. I would like to know if I can have thumbs up, hands up, or like this, reactions with the hand. Raise hand like this, as you can see. So we'll create a free account for everyone, those who have attended the workshop. So you can register and make use of the resources. And now the question time. If you've got any question, please go. And it's definitely time to register your inputs, please. With that, we have come to the end of the session. And your feedback is very important. Please give us your feedback so that we will be able to work on that more and more according to your expectations. And secondly, we would like you to register for with Learn by Chapter, and we would like you to register with Learn by Chapter and start using those resources so that you can suggest it to your friends and students. It is very, very helpful. And once it is done, the main thing is it reduces the teacher's workload so much. The teachers are so very relieved. And it's not that you have become a member, then you should take it forward to your school. The school should register, and you should, unless and otherwise everyone start using it, then you will not be able to incorporate it. So very importantly, this has to be really, take it forward to your school and your institutions, and you start using it in your classrooms, and you can only feel the difference. You definitely feel the difference, and you can really, I don't know, like what to say. There is no word for it. And the teachers' preparation time, the load of work that you carry for preparing lesson plans, resources, the multiple way of preparing your resources with multiple, even the lesson plan with multiple intelligences, STEM-based activities, you name a thing, it is there. If you allow me, I will take you to Learn by Chapter website, but because it's already ahead of time, that's why I'm not able. Ms. Rohini, should we go to Learn by Chapter website? Okay, so thank you. So with that, we have come to the end of this session. So we'll see from next session exactly. And definitely your feedback is important. All the topics that you want to really bring in this workshop, that you can tell us, and so that we will plan accordingly. Thank you.
I need to share screen with learnbychapter.com?
You can actually, if you want to, then we can just show them the website.
Yes, that is the website for courses learnbychapter.com. Here you can see the sign up button. From that you can just register yourself by clicking on that. There is some fields, just fill those fields and you can register yourself. And at the bottom, if you see, there is the option available to, just a moment, it's loading actually.
So this is Learn by Chapter website. As you can see, where Ms. Rohini was there, that's the welcome page, the home page. And you will get access when you create an account. You just have to, all resources are free. You just have to register here. This is the way to register, as Ms. Rohini is showing now. Name, create an account here with your email.
After register, you can sign in always. After signing, you will be able to use the courses.
Yeah. So once you become a member, you can go to the courses. We can go to the courses now, Ms. Rohini.
Just a moment, ma'am. It's loading actually.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome.
There are different courses available class-wise from class 6 to 12th. In 11th, 12th, there is a screens available for 11th and 12th teachers and students. Two types of courses are there for every class for teachers and students. To access any course, you just need to go to class and courses type. If you wish to enroll yourself in any course of teacher, you need to click on class 10, like you need to select class and then you need to click on courses type like student or teacher. Once you click on same, courses will be load accordingly. Firstly, you need to register, then after registration, you can log in and you can start accessing the courses by enrolling yourself. Like in class 10, I clicked on class 10 teachers. There are many courses available for class 10 teachers. Class 10th English, Hindi A and B is available. Class 10th Mathematics is available for teachers and students as well. Class 10 Science students and teacher courses are there. Once you click on any course, then course resources and topics will be loaded. What are the courses available?
It is very slow, right?
Yes, ma'am, it's loading little slow. Getting it.
It's very slow. So this is how it is. As Ms. Rohini has chosen class 10. We are looking at class 10 resources now. Just go to one topic, that's fine. Today, just for example, we'll take class 10 science, I think.
I am just checking on class 10 science. Just a moment, ma'am. I am just trying to log in it.
So when you come to the courses, you can see the drop-down menu. The courses will be for grade 6 to 12. And if you click that particular grade, then it will take you to students or teachers. So you have to choose whether you're a student or a teacher. Then after choosing that, it will take you, it is more aligned with the old NCERT and the new NCERT. So whichever subject that, whichever syllabus that you want to see, that you can choose. Then after that, it will bring you to the exact page of that particular class. Grade 10 means grade 10, then when it comes to grade 10, there you can see the different subjects, that is English, Math, Science, Social, like that. So you have to choose your subject then. So when you choose English or Science or whatever thing, it will take you to the topics, the chapters which are there. Science means which are the topics, the drop-down menu of the chapters. So once you choose the topic, chapter, it will take you to that topic, exactly. So when you come to the topic, there you will have for each and every topic, there will be a set of at least like 30 to 40 list of resources which are being there. Should I try mine? Should I try? I'm trying.
Ma'am, there is some technical issue coming up. We will solve it within 5 to 10 minutes. I request you, everyone, you can go and check after 14 and 15 minutes. So you will be able to log in and register yourself. And you can enroll in any course available from class 6 to 12 in any subject by clicking on Take Me to this course only. There is some technical glitch we will solve within 5 to 10 minutes so that you can go again and get registered yourself.
Okay. So with that, we have come to the end of the session. Thank you for taking part in the session, and we are so happy to have you. And the real happiness is when you get enrolled with Learn by Chapter, and we'll start working more and more with you. So thank you. On that note, I take this opportunity to thank everyone. On behalf of Learn by Chapter team and the Learn by Chapter team as well, who have been who have been there for the backend support, and especially Ms. Rohini, who has been with us through and through. Thank you, Ms. Rohini, and thank you, LBC team, for giving such a wonderful opportunity and the support extended to us. Thank you. Thanks to each one of you. Thank you. Until we meet again with yet another one more workshop, it's bye from all of us. Thank you.